6 months ago, if you'd asked me to describe my marriage to Michael, I would have gushed endlessly about our perfect life together. We had it all: a beautiful home in the suburbs, thriving careers, and a relationship built on trust, respect, and the kind of love that made our friends jealous. Our evening routine was sacred: cooking dinner together, sharing stories about our day, and falling asleep in each other's arms. We were that couple, the one everyone wanted to be. Then Hurricane Judith blew into town. I still remember the phone call that changed everything. It was a crisp autumn evening, and Michael and I were curled up on the couch watching our favorite show when his phone buzzed. "It's Mom," he said, frowning at the screen. Judith rarely called this late. I paused the TV as Michael answered. His expression shifted from concern to shock in seconds. "What do you mean you sold the house?" he exclaimed. "Where are you going to live?" I sat up straighter, suddenly alert. From Michael's side of the conversation, I gathered that his mother had impulsively sold her home in Florida and was now essentially homeless. "Of course you can stay with us until you figure things out," Michael said without hesitation, without even a glance in my direction. When he hung up, he turned to me with those puppy dog eyes I could never resist. "Mom's going through a midlife crisis or something. She sold her house and doesn't know what she wants to do next. She needs a place to stay for a while." "Define a while," I said cautiously. "Just until she figures out her next move. A few weeks, maybe a month?" He reached for my hand. "She's family, Ellie. We can't just leave her stranded." "Of course we couldn't." I nodded, pushing aside my unease. "The guest room could use some fresh linens, but it's ready otherwise." Michael's relieved smile melted away my concerns. "You're the best. I promise it won't be for long." Famous last words. Judith arrived 3 days later with 5 massive suitcases and a yappy Pomeranian named Princess that she'd forgotten to mention. I'm allergic to dogs, a fact my mother-in-law had conveniently forgotten despite the 7 years Michael and I had been together. "Oh, I'm sure it won't be that bad," she said dismissively when I reminded her. "Princess is hypoallergenic." She wasn't. By day 2 of Judith's stay, my eyes were red and swollen and I was popping antihistamines like candy. "Maybe Princess could stay in the guest room only?" I suggested gently over breakfast on the 3rd day. Judith clutched the dog to her chest as if I'd suggested throwing it into traffic. "Princess gets anxious when she's confined. She needs freedom to roam." Michael, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Mom, Ellie's really allergic. Could you at least keep Princess out of the main living areas?" "Fine," Judith sniffed, shooting me a look that clearly said I was overreacting. "We'll make do, won't we, Princess?" That was just the beginning. Within a week, Judith had rearranged our kitchen to make it more efficient, replaced the throw pillows on our couch with her own, and programmed her favorite channels as presets on our TV. She had opinions about everything: the temperature in the house, too cold; the brand of coffee we drank, too bitter; and the frequency with which we ordered takeout, too often. "You know, Michael used to love my home-cooked meals," she'd say pointedly, ignoring the fact that both Michael and I worked full-time jobs while she had all day free to cook if she wanted to. Most infuriating was how she inserted herself into our evenings. Our sacred couple time disappeared as Judith claimed the living room each night, watching reality TV at a volume that made conversation impossible. If we retreated to our bedroom for privacy, she'd knock on the door with some manufactured crisis or question that couldn't possibly wait until morning. But the real breaking point came 1 month into her stay, when I returned home from work to find Michael and Judith huddled over his laptop, laughing together. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my keys. "Mom's been helping me with that presentation for the Henderson account," Michael explained. "She had some amazing ideas." I froze. The Henderson account was the biggest project of my career, a joint venture that Michael and I had been working on together for our respective companies. We'd spent countless nights brainstorming that presentation. "I didn't realize you needed help with it," I said carefully. "Oh, I just happened to glance over his shoulder," Judith said with false modesty. "The original concept was fine, but it lacked punch. I suggested a few tweaks." "A few tweaks." As I looked at the screen, I realized she'd completely overhauled our carefully crafted proposal. Everything we'd worked on together had been scrapped. "What did you think needed changing?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. "Pretty much everything," Michael said, laughing. "Mom's approach is much more dynamic. The clients will love it." I stared at him, waiting for some acknowledgement of our work together, some recognition that he should have consulted me before making major changes. It never came. "I need some air," I said finally, turning away before either of them could see the tears forming in my eyes. I walked aimlessly through our neighborhood, trying to make sense of what was happening. It wasn't just the presentation. It was everything. In just 1 month, Judith had managed to insert herself into every aspect of our lives, and Michael couldn't see it. Or worse, he didn't care. When I returned home 2 hours later, the house was quiet. Michael was waiting for me in the kitchen, a concerned expression on his face. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You seemed upset earlier." I took a deep breath. "We need to talk about your mother." Michael's expression immediately shifted from concern to defensiveness. "What about her?" I leaned against the counter, collecting my thoughts. "It's been a month, Michael. When she arrived, you said it would be for a few weeks while she figured out her next move. Has she even looked at apartments? Made any plans at all?" He avoided my eyes. "She's still adjusting. It's a big change selling her home of 20 years. A change she chose," I pointed out, "without consulting anyone, including her son." "What are you saying?" His voice had an edge now. "That we should kick her out? Where would she go?" "I'm not saying that," I sighed. "I'm saying we need boundaries, and maybe a timeline. At the very least, Princess needs to stay in her room. My allergies are getting worse." "Mom says you're exaggerating about that," Michael muttered. I stared at him, stunned. "Excuse me? You're taking her word over mine about my own body?" He had the decency to look embarrassed. "I just meant—" "I know what you meant," I cut him off. "And that's part of the problem. Ever since your mother arrived, you've been different. It's like you're 15 again, seeking her approval on everything." "That's ridiculous," he scoffed, but his eyes darted away from mine. "Is it? You let her completely revamp our presentation without even consulting me. A presentation we've been working on together for months." "Her ideas were better," he said with a shrug. "It's not personal, Ellie, it's business." "It is personal when it's your mother undermining our partnership, and that's what's happening here. She's inserting herself between us in every way possible." Michael rolled his eyes. "Now you're being paranoid. Mom's just trying to help." "Help? By rearranging our home? By monopolizing our evenings? By criticizing everything I do?" I could feel my frustration building. When was the last time we had dinner alone? Or watched a movie without her commentary? Or just had a conversation that wasn't interrupted by some emergency with Princess? "She's lonely," Michael defended. "And she's family." "I'm your family too," I said quietly. Or at least I thought I was. He softened slightly, reaching for my hand. "Of course you are. But Mom needs us right now." I pulled away. "And what about what we need? What about our marriage?" "Our marriage is fine," he insisted. "No, it's not." I blinked back tears. "We're like roommates now, Michael. Roommates who share a bed but nothing else." Something in my words seemed to reach him. He was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" "Talk to her," I pleaded. "Set some boundaries. Ask about her plans. And for the love of God, do something about that dog before I end up in the hospital." He nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll talk to her tomorrow." Relief washed over me. "Thank you." That night, for the first time in weeks, we fell asleep in each other's arms. I felt hopeful, believing we'd turned a corner. I should have known better. The next day, I came home from work to find Judith sobbing on our couch, Princess clutched to her chest. Michael sat beside her, patting her hand and shooting daggers at me with his eyes. "What's happening?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "How could you?" Judith wailed. After everything I've done for you both? Michael's voice was cold. I talked to Mom about finding her own place. She was devastated. Thanks for that. My mouth fell open. You made it sound like it was just my idea? Like I'm the bad guy here? Well, it was your idea, he said defensively. It was a joint decision. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We agreed last night that this situation isn't working. It was working fine until you got jealous of my relationship with my mother, Michael snapped. Judith's sobs mysteriously subsided as she watched our argument unfold, her eyes darting between us with what almost looked like satisfaction. This isn't about jealousy, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. This is about respect. For our home, our marriage, and yes, my health. Always the victim, Judith muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. Something inside me snapped. No, not anymore. I turned to Michael. I've tried to be understanding. I've accommodated every whim and criticism. I've watched you prioritize your mother's comfort over mine for weeks. I'm done. What does that mean? He asked, alarm creeping into his voice. It means I'm going to stay with my sister for a while, figure out what I want, because this... I gestured around the room that no longer felt like my home, isn't it? You're overreacting, Michael said, but I could see fear in his eyes. Am I? I moved past them to our bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. As I packed, I could hear them whispering in the living room, but I no longer cared what they were saying. 20 minutes later, I stood at the front door with my bag. When you're ready to be a husband again instead of just a son, you know where to find me. Michael looked torn, glancing between his mother and me. Ellie, please, we can work this out. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, you've already chosen your side. I opened the door. I love you, Michael, but I love myself more. As I walked to my car, I heard Princess yapping and Judith's voice floating through the open window. Let her go, dear. She just doesn't understand family loyalty. 3 weeks passed. I settled into my sister's guest room, threw myself into work, and tried not to check my phone every 5 minutes. Michael texted occasionally, brief, surface-level messages that never addressed the real issues. I responded in kind, maintaining the distance that seemed necessary for clarity. Then, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Michael stood on the porch, soaking wet and looking miserable. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside silently. Mom found an apartment, he said without preamble. She moves in next week. I raised an eyebrow. What changed? I did. He ran a hand through his wet hair. You were right. About everything. It took you leaving for me to see what was happening. And what was that? I needed to hear him say it. Mom was taking over our lives and I was letting her. He looked at me with genuine regret. I've been a terrible husband. Yes, I agreed. You have. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. No sugarcoating, huh? Not anymore. He nodded. I miss you, Ellie. Our home isn't home without you. I miss you too, I admitted. But I can't go back to the way things were. I don't want that either, he assured me. I've set boundaries with Mom. Real ones this time. The dog is staying with her friend until the apartment is ready. And I told her our presentation design is final. Your design. It was a start, but I'd been hurt too deeply for quick forgiveness. I need time, Michael. I understand. He stood to leave, then hesitated. Can I call you tomorrow? Maybe we could have dinner, just the two of us? I found myself nodding. I'd like that. As he left, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not for an instant fix or a perfect reunion, but for the possibility of rebuilding what we'd lost. Stronger this time, with boundaries firmly in place. We were once the perfect couple. Maybe, with work and honesty, we could be again. Different, but perhaps better for having weathered the storm.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.